Okay, welcome back everybody. Ryan here for Idle and Emission Solutions today. So we have a Freightliner in today with a SPN 102 FMI 16, and that is high boost pressure or high intake manifold pressure. So I'm going to go through the troubleshooting tree on this, what we found, and the things you need to look at when you're troubleshooting this code. Now this is a 2015 DD13 with a asymmetrical turbo that has a pneumatic wastegate on it. So troubleshooting on newer models or different models, it may be a little bit different. So we're going to go through the tree on this particular model, but again, the same steps are going to go into play with other makes and models as well. And since this is our channel, we have a great website we've put together called dpfdiscounter.com. Very low overhead, great prices, great support. So if you need any type of DPFs, clamps, sensors, and a bunch of other different stuff on there, the best way to support our channel is to check out the website, and any way we can help you out, we'd be glad to do that. Okay, so we're going to get right into this. We're using our jaw test software today, which again we are also a dealer for, so if you're interested in this program, give us a shout either on the website or give us a call. So anyways, so you can see here the SPN 102 FMI 16 had 25 occurrences. I'm going to give you a little background on this truck. It is a 2015 DD13 asymmetrical turbo, so it's not a VGT turbo like the later models like your Cummins X15s, ISXs. It is a GHD 14, so that's kind of all the background with this particular model. I've actually got the Detroit service routine here for this particular code. It is quite substantial. So the other thing with this, I just put this turbo on about a month ago roughly. We put on a brand new turbo, and the customer brought in a OEM remanned actuator module as well. So he started getting this fault out on the road. They ended up taking it into a Freightliner dealer, and the Freightliner dealer just wanted, like very quickly, just wanted to throw a new turbo at it, even though it had a new one on. So if you're following the steps of this, which we did here, we determined that the turbo is not bad. So there's a good possibility they could have spent a few $1,000s through a turbo on this thing, and then, you know, an hour down the road had the same fault again, which, as you all know, that happens a lot out there where you spend a lot of money, throw a $10,000 turbo on something, drive down the road, and you have the same problem again. So we tried to eliminate that here by looking at the big picture and everything that's related. So there's a lot of things in this that you wouldn't think would be related, but they are, as with you know, emission systems that we deal with, specialize in here. We see a lot of symptoms like a DPF that's cracked or blown out, and a lot of times it doesn't have anything to do with the emission system. It's something upstream, you know, where you've got a failed EGR cooler, which is technically an emissions component, or a bad fuel injector that could have caused that to cake up, plug up, and then high pressure blows the trap out of them. When you find a symptom, a lot of people come in for a symptom, and we have to fix that symptom, then work back and find the root cause is the way that we approach things here. And that's honestly the way other shops should be, in my opinion, should be approaching things as well. I have the printout from the dealer that they went to. The first thing is to check the software level on the MCM. They checked that, I checked it. Software levels is above what it needs to be, so it's up to date. The other thing with this fault you want to look at, they were out in like New Mexico and had that big snowstorm here recently. The first thing I asked was, like, do you have a bunch of ice over the front of your grill? Because what can happen is if you're getting a lot colder air through your charge air cooler, I mean, colder air is more dense, so it could be, when you have denser air, you're going to create a higher pressure. So if you're super cooling that air going into the intake, it could result in higher pressure. So that's one of the simplest things you want to do with this fault. Check your grill, make sure it's not covered up. If you have like a piece of cardboard or something in front of her for the winter time, or a grill cover, that's something you want to check that type of simple stuff first. After that, I mean, you can check the hood seals, which they all look good. And then you're going to kind of get into your sensors. So you're going to be wanting to check the basically baseline numbers of like your intake manifold pressure sensor, barometric pressure sensor. Make sure those are all, you know, between like 10 to 16 psi for your barometric pressure. And then sitting here stationary here, we're like 1,000 feet above sea level here, so we're pretty close to like around 14 psi here in Northeast Ohio as far as a baseline barometric pressure. So those are all things to check to make sure your sensors are all reading right. And like I said, this is a asymmetrical turbo. So we want to check with we use jaw test here, and I'll show you the service routine that we use. You can use diagnostic link as well if you have that. So we'll get connected. So in jaw test, we're going to go to your pulse width modulated signals, and we'll go down the turbocharger control solenoid, which is your actuator. So here right now it's at 5%. We're able to move that from 0 to 95% to see if the actuator, the truck is out of air right now. I've already ran all these tests. I'll go over there and show you what we're looking at, and this kind of determines if the actuator is working properly and also if the wastegate's moving. So I'll go there and show you that, what we're looking at when we do this test. I'm not actually going to go through it all right now since I've already done it, and I'll show you what we're looking at. Okay, so this is a little compacted because this is one of the Cascadias where the engine's shoved halfway underneath the hood. It's one of the shorter hood ones, so not very fun to work on either. So here is the actuator for the turbo. It's pneumatic, so you have air pressure coming in. There's a little air hose here that goes down to the wastegate, down here to the little diaphragm for that. There's actually a little rod. It's going to be very difficult to see, but here's the diaphragm that you're looking at where this little blue hose goes. So when we actuate that, right now it's sucked all the way in. So when we take it up to 95, it goes out. So we got good movement and everything that we saw when we were doing this. So we know that's working properly. There's no noise or anything. And the thing about a wastegated turbo, from my experience of 25 years, even going back from high school, vocational diesel tech and all that. Typically when you have a wastegated turbo and if there's something internally broken with that wastegate, you're either going to have no boost all the time or you're going to have full boost all the time. So which this, I mean, they were out for about 3 weeks or so and you had 25 occurrences of that high pressure. So I mean, if it was something that was stuck open all the time or something that came apart in there, I would expect it to be a lot worse, a lot more occurrences of that fault. Also, one other thing with the turbo, we're going to check basically the turbine here, and we want a little bit of side-to-side movement, which we do, but you don't want any end-to-end movement. So spins freely, no noise or anything. So I don't see, I mean, there's no leaks, no exhaust leaks or anything. I actually put a new EGR valve in this at the same time. Everything looks good, everything's new. I mean, which is not to say that a new component can't fail. I mean, it happens all the time, but it's not typical. So, but anyways, we'll go back over to the side and continue. Okay, so we checked that all out. Didn't see any issues with the turbo actuator, or no air leaks or nothing over there. So I'm rolling that out at this point as a possibility of this issue. So, kind of going down our list here. They have to check the EGR delta P voltage. And that's for a TC engine. That's a turbo compound engine, which this is not. So on this particular one, we're going to skip that. Now here's where we found the issue. So the next thing is to start checking the EGR circuit. So what we did, I put this back together because I had to move it around. We got some pictures of what we found with this. So we took the crossover tube off here, found a lot of liquid in there and a lot of buildup. Now again, a little bit of background on this. I've had, this truck has over 1 million miles on it, and a lot of this stuff is original. So I've been a little suspect that there is an EGR cooler issue with this. With the DD13s, as you all probably know, that is like the most expensive EGR cooler on the market. So I've been really hesitant to just throw one on it, even though I've been leaning towards that for a few months with this particular unit. So when we took the crossover tube off yesterday, found a lot more. I mean, like I said, I've had this off a couple times, so I've been monitoring it, so it's not like the first time I've seen it. There was about double the amount of soot buildup, you know, this crud that was built up inside the tube. There was liquid laying inside of the intake tube here. So I think we've finally seen a complete failure. Also, I was monitoring the differential pressure. It was pretty low, which tells me that that volume of flow coming through the cooler it's restricted quite a bit. So typically with these I see around like 0.25. This one it was down to like 0.11 at the lowest point, so it was a lot lower than what it should be. The logic behind this is that EGR cooler is plugged up, and what's happening is you're not getting as much flow through the EGR system into the intake. What's happening is that when this truck's working under a load, it's getting extra exhaust pressure that's allowing the turbo to build more boost than what it should. So that's what we found at this point with this. So really nothing to do with the turbo. So in a lot of cases, if you would have thrown a new turbo on this, again, then you would have the same issue going down the road. So, and again, that's why we're not seeing, that's why we only saw 25 occurrences with this, is because it's only going to do it under certain conditions when it's at that max, when it's under a heavy load pulling up a grade with a load on it, when it's going to push that extra exhaust pressure and build that extra boost. What we're going to do, we're going to pull the EGR cooler off, and I've actually got a DD13 EGR cooler up in the building here that we've taken the ends off of it, so I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about as far as that extra restriction. Also with this, I'll show you, there was some DPF faults. There were some issues down in the one box. And these also could be related to the EGR issues. We just put clean filters in this not too long ago, so I know the DPF should have been good as well. So when you have upstream EGR issues as well, and in some cases turbo issues, your DPF's going to get sooted up quicker. So this was actually having him, it was actually asking him to do parked regens, which under normal cases you shouldn't have to do if everything's working properly. See in the hydrocarbon absorption warning, DPF zone 2, zone 3, which means the DPF's getting full, so it's asking you to do parked regens, you know, with the button on the truck, not with an actual service tool. So that's something you don't want to see either. So I think all this is all related to that cooler, which again, I've been kind of monitoring it, and I've been hesitant to pull the trigger because it's an expensive EGR cooler, and it's also, I mean, with this particular truck, the way everything's shoved back underneath the cab, I mean, it's probably going to be about a 10-hour job or so. So it's not going to be a cheap job, and that's why we've kind of been hesitant to do it. But now I think we need to get this done at this point. So I'll go show you that cooler inside and what we're talking about, and we'll wrap it up. Okay, so I've got a Detroit DD13 EGR cooler here, disassembled about the farthest you can take it apart. Now they don't actually reman these. Most of the ones you get from Detroit, they're brand new. There's some places out there claiming that they're reman. I don't know how they're doing it because these are like made. I've been trying to find a way to engineer to actually rebuild these ourselves or get cores made for them to rebuild them, because like I said, they're around $3,000, so they're very, very expensive, and you got this big aluminum casting. So what these cores, it's actually like they shove it in from this end with a flange, and it looks like they solder this end on, so that's why you can't pull the core out. Because I've always asked, why can't you just recore them? And now, after we've taken, you had to have a special type of Torx bit here, which is not the normal Torx bit, to actually get the bolts out of it. So I bought those just for, that's the only time I've ever used that type, was just to take this apart and see what was inside of it. So what happens, so this core was leaking pretty bad. This came off one of our trucks actually. What happens when you have a fuel injector leaking, any type of coolant introduced into one of the cylinders, whether it could be anything. I mean, injector cup seals, anything. I mean, any way that you're going to get some type of fluid, whether it be fuel, excess oil from a turbo failure. I mean, anything where you're going to get any extra oil, fuel, or coolant introduced into this cooler. There's a lot of soot going through this. So what happens is it builds up in these vessels, and it restricts the flow of that exhaust gas. So that pressure is going to build up down by the turbo. You're not going to get the right flow, so it just causes a bunch of the issues, which it can cause DPF, DOC, DPF, SCR issues as well with a faulty EGR core. Now the other thing that happens with that is when you get that carbon, when it builds up on these tubes, it's like an insulation. So what happens, it can actually cause these tubes to crack, and that's when you start getting that crossing of coolant and exhaust gases. So you'll start getting coolant going through your intake, and then that can cause DOC and SCR failures, because they're very sensitive to glycol and other contaminants. because with the precious metals, so that can actually ruin your emission system while these EGR coolers is leaking. So with that, we're going to put a new EGR cooler on this and check everything out, and hopefully that solves the problem, which, like I said, we're looking at the data and kind of following the trail backwards. That's what we see in this situation. Now, also, like I said, we was going to talk about dpfdiscounter.com a little bit. We sell, have full line EGR coolers. We don't have this one on there right now. Again, I'm looking at ways where we might be able to get a core made for these where we could recore them, and maybe sell a recore kit would be really nice, so maybe in the future. But we do have your DD13, both of the EGR cores for those, a few Cummins ones on there. I think we have Volvo Mac on there as well. Also, like I said, full line of your DPFs, clamps, gaskets. Our new bunk heater, we have that on there as well. So a lot of their products, and also if you're looking for some great lithium batteries, dual purpose ones that we got those as well. And check out Polar Fox APU also. So that's all I got for today, guys. Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the bell for the updates, and like the video.